So why did you start creating content? What was the why or the motivation behind that?
I'm in commercial real estate brokerage. This is half consulting and half marketing properties and services. So I started as part of my marketing, and I started a radio show and started doing content to attract clients for my business. So that was the beginning of it.
I actually started about 5 years ago and started off as a guest being on someone else's radio show or podcast. And that spurred on some ideas for me. And my background is very much around education. I really have a passion for business coaching, educating, and started having a conversation with Rich of Pro Business Channel over lunch. That's right. One thing led to another, and then Franchise Business Radio was birthed.
My show started because I just created the show I wish existed. A lot of comedians have a podcast, but it's just each other trying to out-funny the other comedian. And my favorite moments of comedy podcasts were the in-depth talk about how they wrote a joke or how they booked that late night show, what it's like backstage at Jimmy Fallon. So I decided I would just create the show I wanted to start interviewing comedians asking those questions. And now 4.5 years later, it's become an international audience that I get contacted every day with a comedian saying how much this episode was helpful, or they're reaching out with questions. So it's really all become, like you, like an educational platform for comedians and comedy fans.
Unlike Pam and Joel, who are broadcasting for content and picking up audience, through online, I do it for business contacts. And there's a difference between having someone call you up. If you want to call and develop your business, you need to make phone calls. And when you call somebody and you say hello, 9 times out of 10, they know you want to sell them something. But if you become an individual of value to them, they're interested. So if you invite them on your podcast, you now have an opportunity to develop a relationship with them.
Can you just talk about the format of your show, how it's structured, if each person could just tell us what the structure is?
Really, with the structure of it, I do it at a studio, Pro Business Channel studio, and it did start off primarily with just the audio and the pictures, and now we're starting to involve doing our own thing, just like some video footage that goes along with it. And I call it the multiplier effect. I always tease Rich, I said, we've got a multiplier effect that's happening here. So not only are we creating content by being in the studio, but then our guests come in and I'm sharing it to my social media network. Every single one of my guests is sharing it to their social media network. And then I'm not doing this in my home, right? I'm doing it through Pro Business Channel, and because of the multiplier effect alone with Pro Business Channel, he is sharing it to his network. So it really has this tremendous multiplier effect.
The actual format of my show is it's a long-form interview show, so I do like a teaser clip, my intro, the episode, like the interview, and then an outro. So that's like the actual format of it. The production side has evolved as the audience has. It started out me using borrowed equipment from a friend who had microphones, to then me getting my own equipment, which is just a microphone and then a recorder that I can just travel with. And now it's grown into video, which started out with my iPhone that now is an actual camera. But it's just I've just invested in the podcast as it's gained traction, just took it one step at a time to now. The opportunities that you asked about, I just last year I went on a 2-week tour that was booked all by listeners. Wow. So I was on the road for 2 weeks working, doing comedy shows, and also teaching workshops while at these cities as well. Wow. So I'm not necessarily monetizing it in the sense of a lot of ad reads and things like that, but it's monetized beyond just in the opportunities to be able to get from it.
We do 2 to 3 segments a week. We do a show every week in a studio, a television studio with 3 cameras. And we do video and we do audio, and most of the time I'll have a guest that's kind of the top analyst, economist, commercial real estate leaders from around the country. Some of them will fly in from New York or California just to be on the show. So it's the biggest show on commercial real estate in the country. If you're interested in commercial real estate, it's a very valuable, great show.
How's that impacted your business in terms of sales or revenue, or without specific numbers, but how is it?
Well, it's been great. About 10% of the people that we cold call and meet that own large commercial real estate properties are actually fans of the show. And so they feel, oh, wow, I get to meet Michael Bull, like I'm somebody, right? And so it's really helped us. And to your point about meeting clients, having them on the show, has been helpful too. So we've had clients on the show that turn around and just start doing business with us, and because they're impressed by the show and being on it and that sort of thing. So.
All right, so let's talk about any unexpected experiences or some, wins or successes. If you've already kind of, touched on that, anything you would add to that as far as like something caught you off guard, like I had no idea this would, that 2-week tour by your fans, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, and that's like an unexpected positive.
Yeah.
Just to add a little levity or an unexpected negative is just the amount of work that a podcast is.
Oh, let's all moan for him. Oh, poor Joel.
I know, guys, come here. They'll do it all for you. But it literally is like a lot of work. But it's all been worth it. But okay now. But I've spent, upwards of 15 hours on a single episode that's an hour long. So the workload is something I didn't expect, but it has been completely worth all the time investment.
People always ask, how do you monetize on a podcast? And I know, I'd love if you guys could just do a little deep dive on it, because it happens to be the number one. Anyone who does a podcast, it's probably the first thing people ask. How do you make your money on it?
Right.
They ask, how long is it, right? How often? And then, how do you make money? It almost always pops up, so I'd love if you guys could address that.
So I'm probably not going to give the kind of answer you want to hear regarding monetization. And the reason is because the nature of my business as a franchise consultant, my services are complementary to individuals that are considering franchise business ownership, right? So I'm not necessarily getting in front of my end customer or my end client through the radio show. Do I have sponsors? Absolutely. Does that help cover the cost of having the podcast? Absolutely. But the monetization, where that really comes for me, is kind of what you were saying earlier, becoming that authority, establishing credibility, establishing visibility online, and getting the educational word out there, because my services, believe it or not, are still a well-kept secret. People are not even aware that franchise consultants are out there and that they can receive complimentary business coaching and receive that guide on selecting a franchise at no cost. And the reason is because we're compensated by the franchisor. But people aren't aware of that. So getting the word out there, making it educational, how it gets monetized for me is when that inquiry comes in and they say, Pam, I want your help. I want your services. So it's really more of that visibility thing, kind of comes on the back end versus the podcast being the monetization for me.
Oh, I was going to say, especially for newer podcasters, even if you're not making money, you can still leverage opportunities. So personally, like I got my artwork done for free from an artist just so I would shout him out on the podcast. So there's ways to get paid, of course, that I've had comedy festivals want to be a sponsor of the podcast where they've just paid a flat rate, or they have done a program kind of like an affiliate where I get a promo code and then whoever registers with that code, I get a cut of. So there's all different ways to monetize beyond just money, but mine has a lot come from the back end where they either want to sign up for a one-on-one coaching with me or they want me to come to their town and do a writing workshop and things like that as well.
For me, it was a matter of I came to Atlanta 3 years ago not knowing many people. And it was a way for me to meet people, because in business, you'd rather have people knocking on your door than you having to knock on their door. And you need to differentiate yourself. And when I started a podcast, all of a sudden I began to be known as the podcast guy in my community. And it opened up, right?
Yes.
And it opened up doors for me. And matter of fact, just today, I got an email from someone in England who wants to be on my show. So those are the kind of opportunities that generate from podcasting.
Well, we have advertisers for the commercial real estate show, and we've had different advertisers over the years, and they pay $1,200 a month, and they're advertised on our email marketing, our social media, on our website, in-show mentions, and quick audio ads. They're on the videos with bugs, and at the end of the video recognition. So they get a really good deal, and we'll have, if they have good content for my audience, we'll have them on a show. So we get $1,200 a month, but I have two companies, a commercial agent training company and a commercial real estate brokerage company. Well, they're both sponsors. And I really like those two companies, so they benefit a lot from it. So our monetization has been from advertisers, and then from the business and opportunities, and back to the opportunities or surprises. I now get to speak at national events on commercial real estate and commercial real estate agent activities and things. So I'm considered expert subject matter
You are.
expert in
You
the
are.
country. And the show, I wouldn't be that without starting that podcast 9 years ago, where I walked in scared to death, not knowing what I was doing, and did it.
Michael, I have to do a follow-up on that because this is the other question. How do you decide how much to charge?
Yeah, I mean, there's metrics on charging per, how many listens you get, how many listeners you get, and
The
all
generalized metrics, right? But you're an
Yeah,
niche.
but in our, we just charge $1,200 a month because it's really so valuable for my two companies that I don't really spend that much time on advertising. I tell them we could get a lot more advertisers if we said, in-show mentions, or you just want this, or you want to do it a month. But I just say, look, it's 6 months, it's $1,200 a month. If you don't like it, they'll go away. But that's because the show's valuable for our firm. But
All right, we have one last question. Pick one of these. What was your 15 minutes of fame, shame, or pain?
I got one.
Okay, go.
Rich had taught me how to become an engineer because he couldn't make the show or have an engineer at the
Oh, it's
show.
that story, yeah.
So I'll make this quick. There are usually 5 mics, 4 for the guest, 1 for the host, and now I am the host and the engineer, and that mic was missing because it was on the road. So that means the mics had to move down 1. I started the show not realizing the guest had, the mic was there, but no
It
sound.
wasn't plugged in. She was not happy, yeah. Needless to say, yeah.
I'd like to say the guest was understanding. I said, how about restarting, rebooting? She got up and walked out. I have not heard from her since.
I've been around. I don't know if you know Jim Rohn, how many Jim Rohn fans or E.J. Rohn, but I remember he used to tell the famous story or line, if you will. He says, in customer service, you deal with all these people, but keep in mind, there's only really 7 mean, nasty, ugly people in the world. The problem is they tend to move around a lot, right? So you keep running into them.
So I'll do a fame for the pain one,
Okay.
I guess. It was when I got to interview Cedric the Entertainer. I knew he was going to be in town, so I just tried this social media strategy where I photoshopped a face of, he had a picture with Dr. Phil, and I photoshopped my face onto Dr. Phil's, and I posted it on Instagram. And I was like, if you want to see Cedric the Entertainer on Hot Brett, tag him in the comments. Got like over 100 tags. His opener reached out and was like, hey, I could connect y'all. And then 2 days later, I'm in his green room interviewing him before his show.
Wow. Sweet.
I'll do 1 pain and 1 fame.
Go for it, yeah.
All right. I would say my fame was I was shopping in Costco. There's a plug for Costco. And admittedly, I
They're
know.
now your new advertiser, yeah.
Yeah, they have great prices on vino. But I was literally walking through, no makeup on, mind you, with one of those massive carts. It was right before Christmas, piled very, very high, having troubles maneuvering those huge carts. And some guy walks up to me and says, "You're the lady that does the Franchise Business Radio Show, and I want you to know you do a great job."
Wow.
I
And
was like, "Wow, thank you."
that was without video,
Yes.
right? Because you just started video like a few weeks ago.
And on the pain side, usually it's a technical component, right? Some kind of technical glitch, and really feeling comfortable managing to that. You start to get comfortable too because we at one point we were doing ours live, right? So our shows were live, internet radio, and then we record them so they can then be archived as a podcast and not have any shelf life. Well, when we were doing it live, admittedly so, I had some anxiety when the guest, for whatever reason, couldn't find the studio and they're running late. So you have to rearrange the agenda of how you're going to be doing things and just really think on your feet, especially if you're looking at doing it live.
Yep.
So, little pain.
I had a guest that's on Fox Business News, and he's the head real estate guy at PwC. And we did a segment, and then we have a news desk, and so you just see us sitting behind the desk, right? So we were talking between the segments, And he said, some of those guys, the sports guys, they're wearing a suit and jacket, but they're wearing shorts, underneath. And I said, oh, yeah, that's probably true, right? They're wearing jeans or shorts or something. And then we come back on, we start to do the show, welcome back. Welcome back is Mitch Rochelle, PWC, and Radio Boys, right? and as soon as I looked at Rich, he says, yeah, and we're not wearing any pants.
Ruh-roh. It's a Scooby-Doo moment right
Yes,
there.
we are. Yes, we are.
I train a lot of people to turn
This
on.
all of a sudden turned into an intervention moment here, whatever, right? Yeah.
Well, just so everybody knows, at one point or another, a podcaster will forget to turn on their mic. Period. It's like 90%, almost 100%. So one day I was doing a Zoom training people how to turn on their mics.
Oh, no.
You know where this is going?
Yeah.
I'm telling how important it is to turn on their mic. My mic is off as I'm training. It had picked up the audio from the computer or whatever, it was Zoom.
Can I tell a funny story really quick, and less
for
to do
it,
with podcast? I'll make it short. That just reminded me of something that I did. I leave a lot of voicemails, a lot of texts. That's the nature of my business world. And I leave so many texts. Sometimes you go on autopilot when you're doing this stuff. I actually left a voicemail as if it were a text. I was like, hello, this is Pamela Currie, certified franchise consultant, period. Looking to schedule a franchise consultation call with you. Want to understand your availability? Question mark. I left a voicemail like that. So
That's classic. I'd love to hear that one, yeah.
That's great.
So it is just, I'm sure we've all experienced this. It's just amazing. There's something different that you can't quite describe about podcasting, I was in radio in California for about 10 years, music radio, loved it. But you're sitting in a studio by yourself just playing one song after another. This is so much more interesting when people come in the studio and tell their story. And so early on, back in the day when I was in Virginia, my uncle was a big Vikings fan. I remember watching Fran Tarkenton, on the football field. And then I'm sitting there one-on-one in my studio interviewing Mr. Tarkenton. And his agent said he can only be there. We do an hour show at the time, then we do 3 minutes. He said he can only be there for 10 minutes. He's got to scoot out. He never left. He stayed for the entire hour. And that guy is like 75. He was bouncing out of his seat telling his story. And I was just like, is this really happening? As a kid, I'm watching him play football, right? And then fast forward twice now, last year and then this year, just this week, we interviewed the founder of the Taste of the NFL. Amazing organization, nonprofit. They donate millions of dollars to all 32 cities to that community food bank. They do the event the night before the Super Bowl, $10,000 a ticket. And somehow we have a lot of PR agencies that we're connected with that book our guests and so forth. And it came across the line and it said, we love what you guys are doing. Our 2 missions, as most nonprofits, is to raise money, but raise awareness. We like what you guys are doing with your platform. And he flew in from Michigan, was in our studio. He had a breakfast meeting, flew out the next day. And I was just so captivated with what they're doing. And he gave us press credentials to, I was literally on the red carpet. It was so surreal. I was on the red carpet at this event, and I'm like, what am I doing here, right? And they had our network on here. And then they had ESPN and NBC, and then they're looking down, and it's like, who is this guy or whatever, right? I'm a podcaster, right? Yeah, right? Bring it on, right? And so it was just out-of-the-body experience. And then we got to attend this event. All 32 pro teams were there. They had celebrity chefs from all over the country. And then fast forward a year later, we interviewed him just a week ago, and we're going to Miami. It's just like, that would never happen in radio, right? Yeah, so